What if I told you that one of the most respected men in his neighborhood, a successful businessman, a man who volunteered at children's hospitals dressed as a clown, was hiding the darkest secret imaginable beneath his own home? This is the story of John Wayne Gacy, and what police found in his basement would change America forever. Welcome back to the Hidden World. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because tonight we're going deep into one of the most disturbing cases in American criminal history. Picture this. It's December 1978. The suburbs of Chicago are covered in fresh snow. Christmas decorations line the streets. Families are preparing for the holidays. And on West Somerdale Avenue in Norwood Park Township, everything looks normal. The houses are neat. The lawns are trimmed. Neighbors wave to each other. And at house number 8213, John Wayne Gacy is getting ready for another day of work. His neighbors would later describe him as the perfect neighbor. He hosted summer barbecues that attracted up to 400 people. Local politicians attended, business associates, even members of law enforcement. He ran a successful construction company called PDM Contractors. He was active in local Democratic Party politics. He had his photograph taken with First Lady Rosalind Carter. And in his spare time, he dressed up as Pogo the Clown and entertained sick children at local hospitals. But beneath this picture-perfect facade, beneath the smiling clown makeup, beneath the concrete floor of his suburban home, lay 26 bodies, 26 young men, sons, brothers, friends, all buried in a crawl space that measured just 28 feet by 38 feet. How did this happen? How did a man commit 33 murders over 6 years in a suburban neighborhood without anyone noticing? The answer to that question will haunt you, because it reveals something terrifying about the nature of evil. Something that suggests monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look exactly like us. Part 2. The Making of a Monster. To understand what John Wayne Gacy became, we need to go back to where it all started. March 17th, 1942, St. Patrick's Day, Chicago, Illinois. John Wayne Gacy Jr. was born into what appeared to be a typical working-class family. His father, John Stanley Gacy, was a World War I veteran who worked as an auto repair machinist. His mother, Marion, was a homemaker. Young John was the only son, sandwiched between two sisters. From the outside, everything looked normal, but inside that house, a different story was unfolding. John Stanley Gacy was an alcoholic, and when he drank, which was often, he became violent. Young John watched his father beat his mother. He watched him knock out her dental crowns with his fists, and soon the beatings were turned on him. One of Gacy's earliest memories was being beaten at the age of 4. His crime? Accidentally disarranging car engine parts in the family garage. His father called him stupid, called him dumb, compared him unfavorably to his sisters, told him he would never amount to anything, and perhaps most damaging of all, he called his son a sissy, a mama's boy. He told him he would probably grow up queer. Picture a young boy, desperate for his father's approval, a boy who loved his father despite the abuse, a boy who years later would say he was never good enough in his father's eyes. The beatings often happened in the basement, that dark, confined space where a child could be punished away from prying eyes. Years later, a psychiatrist would note something chilling. Gacy buried his victims in a crawl space beneath his home, a dark, confined space, just like the basement where his father had beaten him. The relationship that went on between them, the psychiatrist would later say, was the forerunner for the relationship he had with his victims. But here's what we need to understand, what we must understand. Many children are abused, millions of them, and they don't grow up to become serial killers. Gacy had 2 sisters who suffered the same abuse. Neither of them killed anyone. So what made John Wayne Gacy different? That question has haunted criminologists for decades, and the answer is something we may never fully understand. Part 3. The Warning Signs. As Gacy grew into adulthood, he seemed determined to prove his father wrong. He moved to Iowa, got married, had children, managed several Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants owned by his father-in-law. He joined the JCs, a community service organization. He worked 12, sometimes 14-hour days. He was named Outstanding Vice President of his local JC chapter. And when his parents came to visit in July of 1966, his father did something he had never done before. He apologized. "Son," John Stanley said, shaking his son's hand, "I was wrong about you." It was the moment Gacy had waited his entire life for. His father's approval, finally. But beneath this picture of success, something dark was stirring. In August 1967, Gacy sexually assaulted 15-year-old Donald Voorhees Jr., the son of a fellow JC member. He lured the boy to his house with promises of showing him films. He gave him alcohol, and then he assaulted him. Over the following months, Gacy assaulted several other young men. He tricked some into believing he was conducting homosexual experiments for scientific research. In March 1968, Voorhees told his father what had happened. Gacy was arrested, charged with sodomy, and sentenced to 10 years in prison. His wife divorced him. His father disowned him. The life he had built collapsed. But here's where the system failed. Despite being sentenced to 10 years, Gacy served only 18 months. He was released on parole in June 1970, less than 2 years after sexually assaulting multiple teenage boys. He moved back to Chicago, and within 2 years, he would commit his first murder. The system had a chance to stop John Wayne Gacy. They had evidence of his predatory behavior. They had a conviction, and they let him go. Part 4. The Basement of Horrors. January 3rd, 1972. It was early morning. Gacy had been out drinking the night before, celebrating New Year's with family. Now, he found himself at the Greyhound bus terminal in downtown Chicago. That's where he met 16-year-old Timothy Jack McCoy. Timothy was traveling through Chicago on his way to visit his father in Nebraska. His bus wasn't leaving until noon. He had hours to kill. Gacy offered to show the teenager around Chicago, give him a tour, let him crash at his place until it was time for his bus. Timothy accepted. Why wouldn't he? Gacy seemed friendly, harmless. That night, Timothy McCoy became John Wayne Gacy's first known murder victim. Gacy would later claim he woke up to find Timothy standing in his bedroom doorway holding a kitchen knife. He said he wrestled with the boy and stabbed him in self-defense. But investigators believe the truth was far darker. They believe Gacy killed the boy in cold blood and then discovered something about himself. He liked it. Gacy buried Timothy McCoy in the crawl space beneath his house, covered the grave with concrete, and got on with his life. He remarried. His new wife, Carol Hoff, moved in with her 2 daughters from a previous marriage. For a few years, Gacy seemed to keep his darkness under control. But in 1976, after his second divorce was finalized, the killings began in earnest. Now living alone, Gacy developed a horrifying system. He would cruise the streets of Chicago looking for young men, runaways, hustlers, or sometimes just teenagers looking for work. He would offer them jobs with his construction company, or money for sex. Or sometimes he would simply flash his badge, pretending to be a police officer, and order them into his car. Once he got them back to his house, the nightmare would begin. Gacy had 2 tricks, 2 methods he used to incapacitate his victims. The first was what he called the handcuff trick. He would pull out a pair of handcuffs and tell his victim he wanted to show them a magic trick. He would cuff himself and then quickly escape. Then he would offer to show his victim how it was done. Once the handcuffs clicked, shut around the young man's wrists, Gacy would smile. The trick, he would say, is to have the key. And then would come the second trick, the one he called the rope trick. He would loop a rope around his victim's neck, use a hammer handle as a tourniquet, and slowly, agonizingly slowly, he would twist. "This is the last trick," he would tell them. "Some victims convulse for an hour or 2 before dying. And through it all, this pillar of the community, this clown who entertained children, this man who hosted barbecues for politicians, continued living his double life. Part 5. Beneath the floor. After each murder, Gacy had a problem. Where do you hide a body? His solution was terrifyingly practical. He would carry the body to the crawl space beneath his house, dig a shallow grave, cover it with lime to speed decomposition, and then seal it over with concrete or dirt. Sometimes he kept the bodies under his bed for up to 24 hours before burying them. The crawl space was small, 28 feet by 38 feet. But Gacy made it work. He stacked bodies on top of each other, 3, 4, sometimes 5 deep. He even hired employees from his construction company to dig trenches in the crawl space. Told them it was for drainage. They had no idea they were digging mass graves. His second wife, Carol, had complained about a terrible smell coming from beneath the house. Gacy blamed it on moisture, on drainage problems. He had his employees spread hundreds of pounds of lime in the crawl space to mask the stench. The smell never fully went away. By 1978, the crawl space was running out of room. Gacy had buried so many bodies that there was simply no space left. So he adapted. His final victims, he threw off a bridge into the Des Plaines River. Throughout these years, young men kept disappearing. John Butkovich, 18 years old, worked for Gacy's construction company, went to collect his paycheck one day and was never seen again. Gregory Godzik, 17, another PDM employee. His car was later found with Gacy's belongings inside it. John Syke, 19, reported missing by his family. When police questioned Gacy, he told them the boy had sold him his car and left town. The police believed him. Why wouldn't they? John Wayne Gacy was a respected businessman, a community leader, a friend of politicians. Besides, these were just runaways, troubled kids who probably left on their own. That's what the system told itself. And while the system made excuses, more boys disappeared. Part 6. The Last Victim. December 11th, 1978. Robert Pius was 15 years old, an honor student at Maine West High School. He worked part-time at Neeson Pharmacy in Des Plaines. That evening, his mother Elizabeth had come to pick him up from work. It was her birthday. The family was planning to celebrate together. Robert told his mother to wait just a moment. A contractor wanted to talk to him about a summer job. He would be right back. She never saw her son alive again. Robert walked outside to meet John Wayne Gacy. Gacy had been at the pharmacy earlier that day discussing a remodeling job. He had mentioned that his company hired teenagers at $5 an hour, nearly double what Robert earned. Gacy invited Robert to sit in his car to fill out a job application. Then he told the boy he didn't have the paperwork, but lived just a block away. Robert Pius went with him. At Gacy's house, the contractor showed the teenager his clown routine, demonstrated the handcuff trick. And then came the rope trick. Gacy later told investigators that as he placed the rope around Robert's neck, the boy was crying and scared. Robert Piest was murdered shortly after 10 that night. His body was placed in Gacy's attic, but this time, something was different. Robert Piest wasn't a runaway. He wasn't a troubled kid from a broken home. He was an honor student. His father was a respected member of the community. The detective assigned to his case, Lieutenant Joseph Kozenzak, had a son who attended the same high school. For the first time, the police took a disappearance seriously. Within 24 hours, investigators had identified John Wayne Gacy as the contractor Robert had gone to meet. They ran a background check, and what they found changed everything. A prior conviction for sodomizing a teenage boy in Iowa. The investigation had begun. Part 7. Closing in. On December 13th, police obtained a search warrant for Gacy's home. They didn't find Robert Piest, but they found other things. A high school class ring with initials that didn't match anyone in Gacy's family. Driver's licenses belonging to other people. Handcuffs, chains, nylon rope. And in a trash can in Gacy's kitchen, a receipt for photo developing. A receipt that belonged to Robert Piest's co-worker who had borrowed his jacket earlier that day. Robert Piest had been inside this house. The police put Gacy under 24-hour surveillance. For the next 8 days, officers followed him everywhere. And Gacy seemed to enjoy it. He invited officers into his home to warm up from the December cold. He took them to restaurants, bought them drinks, all the while denying any involvement in Robert's disappearance. But he was getting sloppy. On December 20th, while inside Gacy's house, Officer Bob Schultz asked to use the bathroom. While he was there, the furnace kicked on, and suddenly, there was a smell. Bob said right away. Another officer later recalled, it smelled like a morgue. That same night, Gacy went to his lawyer's office. The police were waiting outside. Inside, Gacy poured himself a drink, and then he said something that made his lawyer's blood run cold. I've been the judge, jury, and executioner of many, many people. The next day, December 21st, 1978, police arrested John Wayne Gacy outside a McDonald's restaurant. The charge? Possession of marijuana. It was enough to hold him while they obtained a new search warrant. This time, they were going to check the crawl space. Part 8, 26 bodies. Evidence technician Daniel Genty crawled into the space beneath John Wayne Gacy's house. The area was dark, cramped. The smell of decay was overwhelming. He crawled to the southwest corner, started digging. Within minutes, he hit something. Putrefied flesh, a human arm bone. Genty shouted up to the investigators above, "You can charge him with murder? I think this place is full of kids." He was right. Over the next week, investigators dismantled John Wayne Gacy's house. They removed floorboards, tore up concrete, dug through soil that had been compacted over years of burial. They found body after body after body. The nation watched in horror. News crews gathered outside the property. Crowds of onlookers filled the streets. Families of missing young men descended on the site, desperate to know if their sons were among the dead. By December 28th, 27 bodies had been removed from Gacy's property, 26 in the crawl space, 1 under the garage. 2 more were found in the backyard. 4 additional bodies were recovered from the Des Plaines River, including Robert Piest. In total, 33 victims. At the time, it was the most murders any single individual had ever been convicted of in American history. Cook County Medical Examiner Robert Stein supervised the exhumations. Years later, he would still remember the moment he first entered that house. "I opened the door," he said, "and my God, there was the odor of death." Part 9, Justice. February 6th, 1980, John Wayne Gacy went on trial for 33 counts of murder. His defense? Insanity. His lawyers argued that Gacy suffered from multiple personality disorder, that an alternate personality named Jack was responsible for the murders, that Gacy himself was unaware of what he was doing. 6 psychologists testified for the defense, claiming Gacy was mentally impaired by conditions bordering on schizophrenia. The prosecution countered with their own experts, and they had something else: evidence. Mountains of evidence showing that Gacy had carefully planned his murders, that he had dug graves in advance, that he had developed methods to incapacitate and kill his victims, that he had covered his tracks for years. Prosecutor William Kunkel called the insanity defense a sham. In his closing argument, Kunkel took photographs of Gacy's 22 identified victims off a display board, one by one. And as he said each victim's name, he dropped their photograph into the trap door that led to the crawl space, the same trap door that had been brought into the courtroom as evidence. "Show him the same mercy," Kunkel told the jury, "that he showed when he took these innocent lives off the face of the earth." The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all 33 counts of murder. The next day, the jury sentenced John Wayne Gacy to death. Part 10, the end. John Wayne Gacy spent 14 years on death row. During that time, he painted. Clowns, mostly. His artwork sold for thousands of dollars to collectors of what became known as murderabilia. He gave interviews, claimed innocence, suggested that his employees had committed the murders while he was away on business trips. He even hinted that there might be more victims. When asked how many people he had really killed, he once replied, "45 sounds like a good number." On May 10, 1994, at the Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. His final words proclaimed his innocence. His last meal was reported to be fried chicken, butterfly shrimp, French fries, and strawberries. He was 52 years old. Part 11. The Hidden Truth. Today, the house at 8213 West Somerdale Avenue no longer exists. It was demolished in 1979. A new home was built on the lot with a different address, 8215, as if changing the numbers could erase what happened there. But the memories remain. Of the 33 victims, 8 remained unidentified for decades. Thanks to DNA technology, some have finally been given their names back. William George Bundy, Jimmy Hackinson, Francis Wayne Alexander. But as of today, 5 victims remain unknown. 5 young men whose families never knew what happened to them. 5 sons who simply vanished. The John Wayne Gacy case changed America. It showed us that monsters don't always lurk in the shadows. Sometimes they host barbecues. Sometimes they shake hands with politicians. Sometimes they dress as clowns and make children laugh. It showed us that the system can fail, that a man can be convicted of sexual assault, serve less than 2 years, and go on to kill 33 people. And it showed us something else, something perhaps more troubling than anything. It showed us that some victims are taken more seriously than others. For years, young men disappeared, runaways, troubled kids, boys from the wrong side of the tracks, and the system looked the other way. It took Robert Piest, an honor student from a good family, a boy whose father knew people, a boy who mattered to the system. It took Robert Piest for the police to finally take action. How many lives could have been saved if they had acted sooner? If they had listened to the families who reported their sons missing? If they had investigated the man who kept popping up in connection with disappeared young men? We'll never know. But we can remember. We can learn. We can make sure that every missing person, regardless of their background, is taken seriously. That's the lesson of the hidden world beneath John Wayne Gacy's house. Evil exists. It walks among us. It shakes our hands and smiles at our children. And sometimes it lives right next door. This has been The Hidden World. If this story affected you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who loves true crime. And don't forget to subscribe for more investigations into the darkest corners of human nature. Until next time, stay safe out there. And remember, you never truly know what's hiding beneath the surface.